I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there by overtime. It would have allowed.
Kicked me out 3 times while we were trying to cue this thing up. I hope you guys can hear me real well. I've got a new mic. It picks up everything. So I hope you guys can hear me a lot better than you've been hearing me the past few weeks. Welcome, everybody, those of you who are not watching the presidential debate, to an exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with Mr. Bob Rose. How you doing tonight, Bob?
I'm good, Alan, and those of you that are tuning in and foregoing the presidential debate, thank you for thank you for engaging in a more intellectual and common sense based conversation.
I can act like a petulant child. Don't worry.
And so can I. But there are consequences when we do it.
We can't be unburdened by the things that we're unburdened by. So that's how it goes. Listen, I was at this game here that we've got going in the background. I tell you what, I don't think anyone expected this. I expected a win. I was thinking about past years and so forth and saying, okay, this is going to be a close game. Carolina's going to hang around. They really shouldn't hang around. Make this game closer than it really should be. But this game was over in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, the bomb by Carr to Shaheed, that just really kind of just set the tone for the whole game. And the first pass that Bryce Young throws is picked off by your boy Will Harris, and it's on. And Carolina just got punched in the face and had no idea how to respond to that.
For you boxing fans, and I'm not a fan of Mike Tyson, but early in Tyson's career, he would he'd hit someone in the mouth or across the jaw within the first 30 seconds of the fight, and even if the opposing fighter was able to stay on his feet, that fight was for all intents and purposes over. And this felt like an a late 80s Mike Tyson fight.
And I mean, the dome was just rocking from that bomb to Shaheed onward. I mean, it just, the music was getting them. They were just having, it felt like the Drew Brees prime days. And I'm talking like 2011, 2009 era things. And I would say the dome was, Carolina fans don't travel. Okay.
Right.
There was probably a handful of Carolina fans there. So I would say, even though it was a sellout, it was pretty full. I mean, you could see some seats that were empty, but I mean, for the most part, the lower bowl was full. The club area was full. A lot of people wanted to see the dome. A lot of people wanted to, cheap tickets to this game. So they took their kids. I saw a lot of kids there. It was a good feeling. And the more that happened, the more people were into it, and it was really enjoyable. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. It felt like just a Sean Payton annihilation kind of ball game. And for the people who are saying, yeah, but it's Carolina, but you didn't lose or didn't win by like 3 points. You won by 37. I mean, you took it to a bad team. Nobody in 2011 said, yeah, you beat the Colts 62-7, but it was the Peyton Manningless Colts. You're like, no. bury those bastards. And
Yeah.
that's basically what we did. I mean, you could see them. They had their heads hanging down. They were not into this game at all. Nothing they wanted to do worked. It was just, it was a thorough ass kicking from one end to the other. 9 possessions, 9 scores. I mean, that was just, the only thing it wasn't 9 touchdowns.
Yeah.
With some field goals mixed in there. Blake Grupe's first field goal, 57 yards. I was, when they lined up for the field goal, I'm like, dude, this is like a 60-yard field goal.
Yeah.
If you line it up and you're standing in the Florida Lee in the middle of the field to kick them, like, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. But he nailed it. It was a good kick right down the middle. It was something. It really was. I mean, watching it from home, how was it?
I didn't get the crowd feel that you did, but at least I'd like to think that I get, even watching a game through television, or through the press box when I have the opportunity to cover it. I'd still like to think that I get a certain vibe, out of the games, and I can't see the players on the sideline, but I can see the players on the field. And I read a lot from body language, and you're absolutely right. Carolina looked like a defeated team by the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second. And I'll give the Saints credit for this. All you Dennis Allen haters out there, one of the proper criticisms of Allen has been, you're not aggressive enough. When you have a team down, you don't finish them off. It's a lack of killer instinct, et cetera, however you want to put it. And that was where I was the most impressed with these Saints on that day. Was the fact that you said it. You said it on the air. You said it in your recap article. I have said it in my articles and on my show. The Saints did what you're supposed to do when you're playing an inferior team and you have them on the ropes. You didn't give them a chance to regroup. You never let them grab any momentum whatsoever. You finished them off and you just kept coming at them. You mentioned the Sean Payton mentality, and that's what people loved about Sean Payton in this town so much. And I'm not comparing this year's version of Dennis Allen to Sean Payton by any stretch. But again, this team, this coaching staff, went against the criticisms, that they have been facing for the last, 2+ years now.
Well, and that's something I want to talk about too, the coaching staff. I mean, I watched some of the 49ers Jets game last night, and it's amazing. You watch what they were doing, the 49ers. I mean, and I'm like, the Saints ran that play.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints ran that play. Saints could run this play. Saints should run that play. In fact, I was watching this going, you know what? We could kick the 49ers' ass, because this defense is going to know everything that they are running, because they saw it every day in practice.
Mm-hmm.
That would be almost I'm not putting these guys in the Super Bowl or anything like that, but it's almost like when Gruden's Bucks had to go face the Raiders in the Super Bowl, and Gruden knew every single thing that Rich Gannon was going to run. He even had them, he says, he's going to jump up and do this. And he was running plays like he was the quarterback, and that's how prepared they were. I thought the coaching staff did a masterful job with this game plan, because this Saints team, and what did we say all last year? They never looked prepared. They never looked like they were running things that was designed to exploit weaknesses. And Carolina's got a ton of weaknesses. But in this game, every single thing looked like it was designed to exploit a weakness. And that was such a refreshing change compared to the things that we saw last year, where it looked like good plays were happenstance, not by design. I was just I was smiling the entire time I was watching this game. I'm like going, I love this. I love this. I really thought he fumbled before he crossed the goal line. That happened in our end zone. We sat in the end zone, and I could have sworn that it's hard to see because the play's coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought he had fumbled before he broke the plane. Now that clearly shows he did cross the plane. But I was like, man, that's and people are like, why? Why did we get the ball back? Why did we get the ball back? I'm like, holy roller, you cannot.
Yeah.
The only person who can recover that fumble was Bryce Young.
Yeah.
So it was just a great feeling watching this game. How do you feel about the coaching staff?
I loved it. As a matter of fact, in my game ball article, I gave one of my game balls to the coaching staff in general. It's easy to give it to Kubiak and the offensive staff, and well deserved. I kept, as you know, I've always called this the Kubiak Shanahan system. Because it's a very similar system run by Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, which was run by Gary Kubiak in Denver and Houston before that, which was run by Mike Shanahan in Denver, tracing all the way back to the late 80s and early 90s. The system has not changed very much. Because they just do so many things that it really doesn't become stale. Because there are so many things that you can do out of this system, and they tweak their week to week and opponent to opponent game plans based off of who they're playing. But the one thing that you can't always say about this Shanahan Kubiak system is they're going to be aggressive and they're going to be creative. And that's exactly what Kubiak did. Very anti-Pete Carmichael. And that's exactly what how the Saints came out offensively. But the reason I gave it to the entire coaching staff is, again, I felt Dennis Allen and the defensive staff deserved a lot of accolades too, not only for maintaining their own aggressiveness, but DA was very creative in a lot of his blitz calls and things like that too. Look at Alontae Taylor's 3 sacks, for instance.
Oh God,
it came on blitzes from 3 different parts of the formation, and on the second one. It gets lost because Alontae is the one that got free, but they were blitzing Jordan Howden on the same side. You have probably had a perfect bird's eye view of it. That was the exact kind of defense that Buddy Ryan used to run, the 46 defense, with the Bears. You would line up 2 outside blitzers off of your best pass rusher. For the Saints on that play, it was Chase Young. For the Bears back then, it was Richard Dent. Knowing that someone was going to come free. And that's exactly what happened. They challenged Carolina all game long. They never let Bryce Young get a feeling of comfort, and they shut down the run. Then special teams. Groupie had a fantastic game. Field goal wise, no doubt about that. He was just as impressive to me with his kickoff placement. He forced the Carolina Panthers to return all of those kickoffs by not putting them through the end zone. And we know he has the leg, by not pooching them down to the 10-yard line. He was putting them between the 5 and the goal line, making those guys return it. And, yes, that's great accuracy and precision on Blake's part, but that's also a coaching decision. That's Darren Reese saying, we don't think that their blocking and their returner are better than our coverage units. So, Blake, this is where I want you to put the ball. So I thought that was a fantastic job of special teams coaching as well.
Well, Bobby Hebert has been quoted on the radio, and I heard him say it, because Anthony Orji had a particularly good special teams. I think
he did
10 tackles or something ridiculous like that. And Bobby Hebert, of course, says, who doesn't love a good orgy? But I'll watch that, and yes, and very much so. The special teams were outstanding. They really had them pinned and contained. And then Hecker for Carolina kept punting the ball so he would pin Shaheed between the yardage and the sideline, so he kept to run on the sideline or run out of bounds. But Shaheed was fielding these one hoppers to keep them from rolling deeper, which is what he was counting on. He would field them and then run out of bounds. So it would save them anywhere from 15 to 20 yards because he didn't just let it roll all the way. So you had to
Yep.
have a 95-yard drive or something like that. But the one punt, he did not, because he was kicking out of his own end zone. He just punted it as deep as he could. That's the one Shaheed returned to the 16-yard line. And I'm gonna play this. Now this is the third sack by Alontae Taylor. And you're right, all three of them happened on our side of the field, and you could see him coming. It was a lot of guys eating up blocks. Okay, so on this play is getting ready to come up. This is Jamal Williams right here. He's going to run this route where he takes off down the sideline. I think it's the next play. But Jamal Williams, when I saw this play happen, I was saying, this is Lombardi. If you look at this play, we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here and try to run this play in the alley. Watch on this play here. I'll let this go because this isn't the run. This is the pass first, to get him into the running position. All right, so you've got two here. That's that's Olave there. That's Bub Means. Johnson's in motion. I believe that's Shaheed at the top. They're going to call. They're going to. This could be Shaheed, and that's probably because of the blocking. That's probably Olave.
If
But
that's the
anyway,
touchdown, then top of the screen is Olave.
That's the touchdown. This is the touchdown. Watch these guys form the wedge, form the wall to create the alley for Jamal Williams to run through. It's just an amazing play. Yeah, Prentice is coming in. 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks, and no one touches him. It was outstanding. It was outstanding. And when I was watching that play, and you can see it again here, just watch them all shift and kick out. Look at the perfect blocking all the way down. Everyone's blocking. McCoy's got like 2 of them in his hand. And when I saw that, I'm just like, boy, Vince Lombardi is smiling somewhere because that is an unbelievable. That's everyone doing their job.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were talking about, well, Chris Olave didn't get the ball very much. He only had 2 targets, only had 2 catches. When you watch the defense, Carolina was acting like Olave was the guy he was going to go to the whole game. They always had 2 guys on him. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Derek Carr made the right choice every time. Mm-hmm. And Olave fully bought into the system, fully bought into what they were going to try and do. He blocked his butt off. He may not have caught a lot of passes, but he did what he was supposed to do out there. And it was a thing of beauty. It really was. And you saw it with Kamara running. You saw it in the passes that they threw. You saw it with Foster Moreau. You saw it with Juwan Johnson and his touchdown. I was telling my son Matthew, I said, yeah, Juwan ought to go play that tape over there for the Baltimore Ravens. I said, this is how you drag your toe so you're not out of bounds.
Yeah.
Everything about this was it was a thing of beauty, and you could feel how that team responded because it was like a lot. Kubiak got them in a position to do what they do best, and it made everyone want to buy in and just totally do their job. And it's not going to happen every week. Plays aren't going to work every time. But at no point did you feel like this is just an accident. We were lucky to get away with that play. It just felt like this was designed. This is the way it was supposed to work. And all the things that people said that the locker room doesn't like Dennis Allen, the locker room, all these things about the locker room. They don't like Carr. They don't like this. All that was just disproven. And I think the more they win, the more people are going to buy in, the more people are going to enjoy this team, because they're not going to blow every team out 47-10, but I feel a lot more confident about this offense for these first 6 games than I did just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I do too. Because I expected there to be some hiccups and some speed bumps. While they're learning a completely new system. And that's not to say that there still won't be, because again, it's only week 1, and it was the Carolina Panthers and all that stuff. But it felt like Carr has to. It felt to me like Carr already has a firmer grasp on what Kubiak wants to do than what I thought Derek would have at this point in the season. And you're right. Little plays like Olave and that seal block, Jawan and Foster just, moving with Carr when he breaks out of the pocket, plays like that. It feels like these guys have bought in already. Which bodes well, because after a 47-10 thrashing, you're going to come into week 2 with a lot more confidence. And it's great to believe in what your coaches are trying to teach. And you've seen a little bit of it work against your own defense in practice. The little you unveiled in the preseason, okay, well, this worked and that worked. I'm feeling pretty good. Now you've done it in a regular season game. And don't give me bullshit about, the quality of opponent. This is still an NFL team. With players getting paid millions of dollars, high draft picks, et cetera. And no, Carolina is not going to be any better than a bottom 5 team this year, but it's still an NFL team, and it's still a division rival. And Carolina had just as much to play for in week 1 as the Saints did, motivation wise. And you took them behind the woodshed. If you're a player, buying into this new system, it just earned a lot more points, of confidence in your book.
Absolutely. I mean, you feel like what you're working on works. And if you feel like what you're working on works, you're going to be more tempted to do the things, all the little dirty work that you don't, that you usually feel like, this is a waste of time. I don't need to do this. And I think about the catch, for example, with Joe Montana and to Dwight Clark. Joe Montana was talking about how, normally that's a play that happens. It's not like anything you can practice, but they practiced it and they kept working through it. And here he calls that play, and they execute it because they believed in it. He knew exactly what was going to, and Bill Walsh told him exactly what's going to happen when you do these things. It's the same thing happening here with Kubiak and Carr. They're making it very simple for Carr. It's not a lot of things they're asking him to do. It's a 3-level read. And he knows that these players are going to be in the positions they're going to be in. So he can make a quick decision. He's not sitting there trying to, okay, where's the safety now? Where's this guy? What am I going to do? Make sure this alignment's right and everything else. Everyone knows their job, and the plays work. And that was one of the things I was really happy to see. There wasn't a lot of procedure penalties. There were a lot of penalties, but it wasn't procedure penalties, wasted timeouts because you have to go to the sideline. There wasn't two guys in the same area, like the play, and you see 2 receivers and 4 defensive backs, and that's where he's got to throw the ball. That's what we saw last year.
Yeah.
None of that was happening. Everything felt good. Everything felt like this is the way an offense is supposed to run. And the very fact that I'm watching the 49ers run the same plays with the same results against the Jets makes me feel like, you know what? They can do this against the 49ers. They can do this against the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. And yeah, it's not going to be a 47-10 game against somebody like the Chiefs, but you don't feel like we have no chance of getting anything done. It felt good. It really did. I want to ask you though about Clint Kubiak specifically with his play calling. Um, we know what they did against Carolina. How would you attack the Dallas Cowboys if you're Clint Kubiak? What would you do to Dallas that you probably didn't need to do against Carolina, but to give somebody a good look? Or the other part of this question is, what did you think the Saints put on film that now has defensive coordinators going, oh shit, we have to game plan for this now?
Well, first of all, you put a lot more of Taysom Hill on film. You excuse me. Taysom didn't get heavily involved as far as getting the football. But in the 47-10 game, when you're up 30-3 at halftime, you didn't need it. But what I liked is that they continued to move him around the formation. We saw Taysom in motion. We saw him in the slot. We saw him out wide. We saw him at tight end. We saw him as a shotgun, as a sidecar in the shotgun, and we saw him as a tailback and as a single back. Those were a lot more positions than what Pete Carmichael or even Sean Payton used Taysom Hill as. So right there, you just put on film. Hill might have not have gotten the ball out of all those positions, but the Saints are willing to do a lot of different things with Taysom already. Now, if I'm Mike Zimmer and the Dallas Cowboys, I'm seeing Taysom lined up in all these new positions. And even if he's not getting the ball, I know he's going to at some point. So I have to prepare for that. Alave only got 3 targets, 2 receptions. He's going to be more heavily involved. So again, just because I didn't see Chris Olave used, I know they're going to use him. Rashid Shaheed, we saw a couple teasers about him in the backfield. I think a one wide receiver screen. We know the 49ers love to do that with Deebo Samuel, both of them. So we know that they're going to do that with Rashid Shaheed. In fact, that was one of the first things I predicted when Kubiak got hired. So it's just those kind of things. We saw a tackle eligible play. Landon Young didn't get the football, but we believe he was the primary receiver on Foster Moreau's touchdown reception. So again, it's what they didn't do, but showed that they're willing to do it. That has Mike Zimmer preparing for what might be or what could happen, in the film room for the Dallas Cowboys this week.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that too. I mean, you saw Taysom Hill in the pistol. You saw Taysom Hill in motion. You saw him as a tight end. You saw him as a fullback. You saw him as a running back. You saw him as a receiver. That touchdown pass, really, that ended up having to go for a field goal. It was really a good play by the defensive back. He got his hand between the football, and Taysom's got the ball and cannot pull it in without the guy batting it out. I thought that play and the other touchdown didn't happen. The second one to Shaheed, it was like the go route that they ran last year against the Titans. The ball was in a good position. It was the right receiver to go to. The defensive back just made a great play. And the safety came over. So Shaheed had to be aware of the safety as well. But I mean, again, you're showing you're attacking this team vertically, but you're also attacking them horizontally with the bubble screens, with the pitches and the design runs that ran wide. The offensive line, I felt like, got out there in front of people. We haven't even mentioned Fuaga and Penning, but both of those guys had good games. They each got 1 penalty. They probably could have got flagged for a couple more, but they didn't flag them. They did not just put those guys on an island and say good luck. They
Right.
did a lot of things to try and help those guys, make sure those guys were successful. They ran a lot on Penning's side.
Hmm.
When they were doing a lot of polls and stuff, they were going Flaga's side.
Hmm.
The things those guys did well, they had them do in that game, and that to me, that's the big difference. Compared to last year, Carr got rid of the ball quickly. They would run outside or run bootlegs to the outside to get Carr away from any kind of pressure. All things that to me, and this is why I asked that question, to me, it was like they knew what Carolina was going to try and do, and this is how we're countering it. This is what we're going to do. So to me, I think it's that they're going to come up with schemes to get Carr away from Micah Parsons, to make Micah Parsons work to go get Carr, and have plays run away from him, or use his speed to disadvantage. When he tries to come upfield, they're going to go right behind him.
Hmm.
So I feel very good about this game. That doesn't mean I think they're going to win. It doesn't mean I think that they're going to blow anybody out in Dallas, but I think Dallas is going to have their hands full. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do too. We talked about the 49ers. The 49ers offense has had a lot of good success against the Dallas Cowboys defense in the last couple of years when they played them. You and I have both pointed out how it's forget the word similar. We can almost use the word identical system. And they do that not by running into the teeth of the Dallas defense because they got some beef up the center. Not by you see Micah Parsons on the right side, so we're going to run away from him. That makes zero sense against an athletic guy that's going to run down your play. I'm going to run at him. I'm going to run traps. I'm going to use his speed to our advantage when he comes up the field. I'm just going to let him and Mark Schlereth, who ironically called the game on TV. Mark Schlereth was one of the better linemen that's ever come through the Kubiak Shanahan system, and Mark has always talked about the way they taught their offensive linemen, and Rick Dennison too. The way they taught their offensive linemen is you don't necessarily have to overpower the guy play after play. Sometimes you just use his momentum against him. If he's going one direction, you just help him keep going that way, and that creates your hole right there. That's the kind of thing that you do with the Micah Parsons, with the DeMarcus Lawrence. The Cowboys don't have very athletic, inside linebackers. So, this is the type of game where I would look for Kamara to be a lot more involved as a receiver. Those kind of nuances. The additional wrinkles that we've seen from the Saints before, in different versions, and didn't necessarily see it used in week one because they either didn't have to or had their game plan designed differently. Expect them to attack the middle of the field. The Cowboys have have a really good cornerback, but we'll call them average safeties. So test those safeties. Let them defend the seam routes. Against Foster Moreau or against Taysom Hill. So these are a couple of the things that I expect to see on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the Saints defense matches up very well with the Cowboys offense. The Saints offense, it's going to be a test. I'm not going to say that this is a good matchup for them until I see it in action. But I think they have the ability to be successful against Dallas's defense. But the key is going to be, just like this past week, the Saints defense getting them in positions where they have short fields to play on. They're not going up against them for 80 and 95-yard drives. And I think the Saints offense, I think the coaches know that, and the coaches are going to put these guys in positions that these things happen. Speaking of the defense, last week, Sunday, we really didn't see much of a pass rush. Some of it was um, they were blocking Chase Young, who looked like he was getting the most pressure. They were trying to double team him or get the ball away from him. A couple of times I thought Cam Jordan and Chase Young almost had Bryce Young, but he kind of got small, which he's short already, but he just kind of shifted and got out of the way. But I was reading Avery's comment here. Yeah, that would be entertaining. I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that we shut the media down and they have to pay attention because they still have us at 23. Of course, we play the Eagles the following week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was they were trying to just run with their 4, and then on third down, we mentioned Alontae Taylor earlier. Alontae really did a good job hiding behind guys. The hole would open up, and boy, he was on him. He was on, and Bryce Young had no idea he was coming, and just kind of almost, oh, sorry, Jim, almost a phantom sack kind of performance where by the time we got to the third sack, he was already going down before Alontae was on top of him. I mean, it was really good. And yeah, I agree, Calvin. I think they were trying to keep Bryce in the pocket or make him beat them with his arm, and he couldn't. Mm-hmm. He overthrew a lot, and he got picked off twice because of it. But yeah, I think it's going to be that kind of game for Dak. I think they're going to try and make Dak. They're going to go out. They're going to bracket CeeDee Lamb and try and make Dak beat them with one of his other receivers. And they're going to like their matchups. Adebo versus whoever they have. We don't. Lattimore says his hamstring injury was minor. I watched Kool-Aid McKinstry come in, and I thought Kool-Aid did a pretty good job in the limited snaps he got. And I like Alontae Taylor so much in the slot. I mean, he really was – he moved a lot better. He was a lot faster, a lot more assertive. I just think it's a great matchup, Dallas's receivers against the Saints secondary. And I have no fear of those old running backs they've got.
No, I don't either. I mean, the individual matchups that are going to be the most fun to watch are going to be CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks against the Saints corners. That's a get your popcorn kind of matchup. The most important matchups, though, again, are going to be up front because we all know that if you pressure Dak Prescott, especially up the middle, he's going to throw a few to your team. And the Saints secondary is full of ball hawks. Mm-hmm. I can't see Dallas having any significant success on the ground. Their offensive line is not good enough, in my opinion, to just dominate teams in the trenches. And Zeke Elliott and Rico Dowdle, however you pronounce his name, they're not the kind of backs that are going to take over. Zeke isn't the kind of back that's going to take over a game anymore. And Rico just is a complimentary back at best. Dallas is going to live or die this year on the arm and of Dak Prescott and the receiving ability of CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. And then on top of that, their best tight end, Jake Ferguson, he's out for several weeks. We think several weeks. He's definitely going to miss this game. So now Dak's down one receiver too. This New Orleans secondary, they know they're good. I think they gave up a couple plays against Carolina. One because the game was no doubt anymore. And B, it almost looked to me like they got bored. Yeah, you're not going to get bored against Dak Prescott and these Cowboys receivers. In fact, Jordy Hultberg and I were talking about this morning. Lattimore's hamstring is worrisome. It is anytime you hear the word hamstring and wide receiver or cornerback, it just is. But if Lattimore's even not 85 to 90% healthy, this is exactly the kind of matchup that he gets geeked up for, is
Absolutely.
to go against a guy like CD Lamb. So this is going to be a fun matchup.
I think that's why I think he's going to make an effort to be out there, because this is the kind of guy he wants to go against, because this is what you build your reputation against. You want to beat up who they consider an elite receiver, and CD Lamb is an elite receiver, but that's who you want to beat. You want to beat the elite guys. You know, Mike Evans, CD Lamb, even in his prime, DeAndre Hopkins, and AJ Brown the following week. Those guys, those are the people that he is amped up to play against. And coincidentally, all those guys, they may be fast, but they're also physical receivers, which is what he loves. He doesn't like the skinny speed guys.
No, he doesn't like going up against guys like Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. Which Paulson Adebo, I think, is perfect to go up against Brandon Cooks. I think Will Harris did a great job at safety. I thought Howden did a good job at safety. He got himself in some good positions. They rotated him. They're working him in, but they're playing Will Harris. He's still getting the starts over him, which is good, because you have two capable safeties. You're not stressing out over, oh God, now I got to play this guy.
Right.
You're doing what you want to do. You're rotating your players in. And I think Chase Young feasts this game. I think he gets his sacks. Just because I think he was so close in some of these games. And I saw you like my comment on Twitter. Where we sat in the end zone. So we went walking down, and it's the end zone they warm up at. And it's the end zone where they sit there and they do all, because it's right where they come out. So I'm in the stand, so it's about 10 to 20 feet away. He's standing there, and he's got his shirt kind of up a little bit under his pads. He's walking around going, that's a big dude. That's a really physical dude. And when he walked by some other people, I'm like, yeah, he's still a big physical dude. I mean, he's taller than Cam. He's one of the taller players out there. Now, you look at, when you do the eyeball test on a guy like Peyton Turner, I can see why the Saints took him in the first round based on the eyeball test.
Yeah.
He's got the long arms. He's incredibly tall. You see a lot of big men. I mean, there's no other way of getting around it. Penning's big. Taysom Hill is big.
Yes, he is.
He really is. I mean, he doesn't look that big, but this dude's arms are pretty damn big. He's a big man. But, I mean, you look at these defensive linemen and stuff, you realize how big some of these guys are. It's why they do as much as they can do. And I can see this is where the RAS score comes in. And, these are very athletic guys. Some of them aren't great football players. Some of them can't stay healthy, but they're still, eyeball test. There's some big guys out there. But I think this is a game where Chase Young really, he kind of comes out, because this is going to go against Dallas. He knows a lot of people will be watching this game. I'm curious to see what group we get for this game. Who calls this game? I know we're not going to get Tom Brady, thank God. Man, that dude. They really gave Breeze a hard time, but Groupie does like a toddler next to everybody else. They gave him a lot of money, but I thought Greg Olson's just so much better of a color guy. I think Brady really needed to work his way up, and it's because of who he is. John Madden started out with the lower CBS crews before they broke up, Summerall and Brookshire to
Mhm.
put Madden with Summerall. But Summerall worked with, he does the 1979 Saints 49ers game, and he's there with, I think it's Lindsey Nelson he's out there with. And then he's out there with Vin Scully. Well, Vin Scully, hearing him call football games is really weird because, all I can hear every time I hear Vin Scully is, I think of Kirk Gibson, the Dodgers, the home run, the whole bit, because I've heard Vin Scully for so long doing baseball.
Yeah.
So it's really unusual to hear him do football. But yeah, I mean, they had Madden work his way up until he got to the top team. Now they don't do that anymore. Now it's like, okay, you're the top team. We decided, and it's a shame because I think Greg Olson's so much better.
Oh, I loved Greg Olson too, and he did so well for being such an inexperienced color man. And I'm not saying whether I believe Brady is going to be good or bad, but have you ever seen a promo where you have a featured player? Usually, you have two featured players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen a promo where you have a featured player and an announcer?
Right.
And that's all I saw on Sunday. I wanted to throw up before the game even started. And I swear to God, during one commercial break, it was, be thankful you were at the Dome for this one. Because I swear to God, on one commercial break.
My first Saints game right there.
Nice.
I think that's my first Saints game, 74, Dolphins against the Saints. That's the one that sticks in my mind. I could have been in a 73 game, but that's the one I remember. Dolphins against Saints. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But on one commercial break, stay tuned. Most of our viewing audience, will see Tom Brady's first game, and Cowboys against Browns. What the hell did I just hear?
Exactly. It's and the frustrating thing about this is Joe Montana was not good in the studio. He only lasted about a year. A lot of great football players. They didn't give Drew Brees any rope at all. I mean, they cut him from NBC so fast. And I listened to Jason, Cowboys ex-coach, Jason Garrett.
Garrett, you're right.
Jason Garrett, yeah. I listened to him, and it's like, you're not saying anything differently than what Drew was saying. You're just saying it more energetically and more forceful. And I said, part of the thing that makes announcers now is you kind of have to have a personality.
Yeah.
Tony Romo gets ripped on a lot because, I don't know, Jim. But his personality is he's the fan. He is the fan watching the game, and he's not just telling you what's going to happen. He tries, that's his way of making it exciting, like this could go either way kind of thing. And some people hate it, some people like it, but it's his shtick. And for lack of a better term, it's his shtick. And you kind of have to do that now. John Madden.
Sorry to interrupt you, and I think you were going here. It's because of John Madden that a lot of people have to do it now. And as great and legendary as Madden was, the people now, and Romo's a great example, they try to be Madden plus 10. And that's where they're making their mistake. And one of the things about Drew Brees is he's such an analytical mind and such an analytical personality. And Tom Brady is the same way. That's why I wasn't surprised. I was pissed that they did that. I think it was NBC really didn't give Brees enough of an opportunity. But I wasn't surprised that he wasn't successful. I said even at the time, I'm like, I don't want Drew Brees in the booth. And frankly, Drew Brees would fit best on the sidelines as a coach. But if he's going to be in the media, I want him as a studio analyst with a couple personalities around him. So that way he can just be the analytical guy. That's where NBC dropped the ball on that one. And Tom Brady is a very similar personality, and I could see the same thing potentially happening with him.
Well, Terry Bradshaw's shtick is he's the dumb jock.
Right.
He's going to say goofy things, but it's funny. He plays off well with Howie Long and Michael Strahan and those guys. And it really, that he started that with as a as a color commentator with Vern Lundquist, no less.
Yeah.
He did the Fog Bowl. He did a lot of those games, but he explained his knowledge of the game, but he also was making jokes and being funny. Hokie Gajan, for years as a color guy on WWL radio, was popular because he would come with these country sayings, Drew Brees can throw that ball through a knothole. When a back would get run over trying to block, that was a classic example of a Ford meeting a rooster meeting a Ford, that kind of stuff. I mean, that guy's so fast he can go rabbit hunting with a hammer. I mean, that was hilarious, and people enjoyed that because that was Hokie. That's his personality. It's hard to come up with a creative personality on your own.
Yeah.
But that's what guys have to do now because of John Madden. And John Madden was just being John Madden.
Right. Honestly. And Terry Bradshaw's just being Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, when I hear these guys, I hear Greg Olson, I enjoy him because he is an analyst. And he is very objective. Unlike a Troy Aikman, who's always, backing any team from the NFC East. They're always the better team. I'm glad he's on Monday night. I don't have to watch him.
Right.
I can go put on the Manning broadcast and enjoy that. And the funny thing is, we were talking about this. My daughter is a big fan of the Kelseys. She likes Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce, their little podcast. And Jason Kelce has been showing up since he's retired, showing up on the pregame for Monday Night Football. He's showing up on the Manning podcast. And he is taking the same cue from Peyton Manning to be the kind of person he's going to be. He is going to be your goofy, drunk, but sober friend. Making a fool out of himself, playing the straight man, but at the same time, you like him because he's the funny guy.
Yeah.
And again, it's the personality he's developed for television. He's at the Buffalo game. The Chiefs are playing the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. He's out there shirtless, in with the Buffalo fans, chugging beers. I mean, the only missing from this is shout from, Otis Day and the Knights. I mean, he is Bluto out there. So you can guess what I am now. That's my advice for you is to start drinking heavily. Basically, that was his personality, and that works. And I didn't mean to go on this long tangent, but Turbo Duran said, "Yeah, we have to win this game against the Cowboys, of course." But the funny thing is, we saw the Saints play, and then Atlanta was playing the Steelers at the same time. And honestly, I thought that was the game that we were going to get, Steelers versus Atlanta with Carolina. I thought it was going to be one of those games where we weren't going to play that well, but we were going to win by kicking field goals or maybe scoring one touchdown. And Carolina was going to be as pathetic as Atlanta. Did you see any of that game? I watched some of the lowlights.
I saw a good bit of the game because I had a heck of a time with my streaming in the first half. And then the Saints game ended, or at some point early in the fourth quarter, I was like, okay, I can go back. I've figured out my streaming. I can go back and watch the rest of this game because at 47-10, there, for my job, there's not a lot to analyze anymore. So I watched the end of the Steelers Atlanta game, hilariously so, might I add. Again, it's only week one, but Kirk Cousins, I told you so.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Atlanta, Raheem Morris, I told you so. I was asked this morning by Jordy, am I surprised the Steelers won? And I said no. The Steelers have a defense that could beat anybody. The Pittsburgh's offense is absolutely pathetic, and I think will be most of the year. But they were playing an equally pathetic defense in Atlanta. And the difference here was Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was Kirk Cousins, and Atlanta will always be Atlanta until they prove otherwise. And that's why they lost the game. That's why they're going to finish third in the division, and that's why they're going to have double-digit losses again this year.
Well, we had that Falcons fan that chimed in that time, and I said, look, they have no defense. Oh, yeah, they got this guy. No, they don't. They have no defense. I've seen this defense. They have no defense. And yeah, Kirk Cousins is doing exactly what Kirk Cousins does if he doesn't have a Clint Kubiak calling the plays.
Right.
Doesn't have a system like that. They don't have a Justin Jefferson. So, and Turbo Duran, I know, I was just being facetious for the most part, but I was worried that we were going to be rusty, kind of still figuring out the kinks in game one, and Carolina was be able to hang around. I did not expect a 47-10 ass whipping, but yeah, and you're right, exactly. When I heard all these people picking the Falcons, and the Falcons have this, and the Falcons have that, I'm like, no, they don't. No, they don't. They do not have the guys that you think they've got. And and once again, it's the Buccaneers and the Saints who are top of the division, and they're the only two teams that are going to matter because the Falcons are going to Falcon. Somebody wrote on Twitter for Falcons Twitter, because of course, whenever the Falcons lose, I have to go and read Falcons Twitter because it's so fatalistic. It's so enjoyable to read the misery. And one guy accidentally typed in, they need to put in Michael Penis instead of Penix. And the responses were hilarious. Well, we're just going to put the tip in. This is going to be his new name from now on. We can put him in for a few spurts, that kind of, just the jokes. We're just rolling off of this. The guy says, I hate you for writing this, but I love you, that kind of thing. It's hilarious. And yeah, it's exactly the Falcons on who the Falcons are, and Coward and all the rest of those clowns that were out there because you signed some free agents. This is the same team that paid Kirk Cousins $150 million or whatever the hell they paid him, and so much of it, most of it guaranteed. Then instead of taking a pass rusher, which you need, you take a quarterback who you're not going to play for at least 2 years because you've got so much money tied into Cousins. It's hilarious. It really is. And they don't have enough weapons on offense. Kyle Pitts is another O.J. Howard, another, first-round draft pick who peaked in college and is not a prime-time guy. And, yeah, it was just a joke. And so I'm not surprised the Saints won. I'm not surprised Tampa won. And I think it's going to be a battle between us and them for the division title. And that's the way it's just going to be. I think Atlanta's going to be in third. And I think, Carolina, they're going to be competing for the first overall pick between them and the Giants. Speaking of which, did you see November 10th in Munich, Germany, Giants against Panthers?
No.
As if the Treaty of Versailles didn't punish Germany enough.
Right.
I think the eastern part of Germany will want to go back to being East Germany rather than have to sit and watch that game.
I was literally about to say we might see the wall go back up between now and November 10th. So that way, people on the other side of the wall won't have to watch the game. They'll be on the other side of the wall between them and the stadium.
They had that joke in there too, Chad. I mean, they just had it all. It was hilarious. I kind of got lost in that set of comments over the rest of the misery by the Falcon fans who like, why do I give these people so much of my life? That kind of stuff, the Carolina fans, they're like, can we trade owners? Can we sell an owner? Can we get anybody else to own this team? That's the hard part. Yeah, I'm hoping I know the Falcons are going to lose. They play the Eagles. But I hope the Buccaneers lose too. And I like to see, this is one of the games of the 6 games that start this season, going into the Denver game with Sean Payton revenge game. The Cowboys game was a game I kind of as a toss-up, but we could possibly win or lose. I kind of expect us to win. Well, I do expect us to beat the Falcons. I kind of expect us to win this one against Tampa because I think we go to Tampa, and for whatever reason, we play better in Tampa than we do at home against the Bucs.
That is true, but the first game against Tampa is actually in the Superdome.
Oh, it's in the Dome? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, but I think the toss-up games are the Tampa game and the Dallas game as games that they could possibly win, steal, win. The Eagles and the Chiefs, I'm really kind of, I'm not that enthusiastic about. You play at Philadelphia. No, you don't. You play at home.
No, it's at home.
Wow. The Chiefs, though, you play at Arrowhead. Right?
Yeah, that's a loss.
Yeah, you're going at Arrowhead. I'm sure Taylor Kelsey's going to be there. I'm sure the media is going to be there. That's not a game that I feel really good about. I think
Goodell will not forget the talent on the field. Goodell will not let the Chiefs lose that game. It's as simple as that.
And speaking of which, there's some people who talk about this. It was on Twitter during that Thursday night game. NFL fans looking at Buffalo for allowing Kansas City to trap Xavier Worthy. And it's this dog just staring, and this other dog like looking the other way, like refusing to look at that person. And it's like, you could have you've done it to us twice. You first gave them Mahomes by trading. Then you allow them to draft Worthy because you take somebody else, or you trade. I think they traded away. Traded down past Kansas City. So Worthy fell to them.
Yep.
But and Worthy wasn't even the big threat. He had 1 or 2 good plays, but it's just he's fast. You gave them a speed guy. The last thing they needed.
Yeah.
But we're jumping ahead real quick. Your predictions for Sunday.
I'm with you. I like the matchup. But Micah Parsons worries me. And we didn't talk enough about how well Fuaga and Penning played last week, but they really did play well. This is going to be a bigger test for them. I can actually envision a scenario where the Saints go into Dallas and play very well, but come up just short. And you know what? If that happens, and I'm looking at the schedule, and you have obviously the Cowboys this week and the Eagles next week. If you can split those 2 games and pretty much hold serve, split against the Falcons and Buccaneers at worst, and you should on paper roll over the Broncos and Chargers
Mhm.
And then you have the Panthers again and the Falcons again. You're sitting real pretty if you can do that. Now, I know the Saints have won 6 straight season openers, all 3 season openers under Dennis Allen, but the 2 week 2 games under Allen and 4 of the last 5 years that they've won the season openers, they've laid an absolute clunker in week 2.
Mhm.
I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of intensity level this team can maintain. Coming into week 2. That's why I'm kind of glad it's on the road. At Dallas. It's a regional rival, which I've always
Mhm.
felt like seems to carry more influence with the fans than it does the players. But you mentioned Chase Young, about motivation. Chase Young going up against the Cowboys, America's team, national darling, all that. If the rest of the players can kind of look at that too, saying we're going up against an NFC East champion. So many people in the media want to crown them Super Bowl champions every year. We go into their place and we play pretty well, or we come out with a win. We're going to be feeling pretty good about ourselves. So I'm going to be very interested to see the motivation out of this team. But if they are confident and motivated, I think they can go into Dallas and come out with a win. Micah Parsons worries me. Lattimore's hamstring worries me. And the new offense, like I said before, as good as it looked last week, I know there's still going to be some hiccups and and minor speed bumps. So if I had to make my prediction on Tuesday, I'm actually going to predict the Cowboys to win a close one, 28-24 kind of thing.
Well, the funny thing is, we didn't even talk about Lucas Patrick being injured
Right.
with his toe. So Landon Young probably gets the start if Lucas Patrick cannot play. That's a challenge because you've got a guy who was right tackle and was the third tackle coming in to play left guard. That's going to be a challenge. His hand, we talked about Lattimore's hamstring. Foster Moreau left the game with a concussion, so he has to go through concussion protocol. I think it's a good chance he plays, but regardless, he doesn't get to practice. So it's one of those things that is a lot of questions Tuesday. The hurricane, Chad asked about that too, because that's coming up through his neighborhood. It's supposed to come up right there in Terrebonne and Terrebonne Parish and Terrebonne Bay and that kind of stuff. Come up over maybe Port Fourchon, that whole area. That's kind of the path that Ida took. Now this storm isn't as strong. It's not even a hurricane yet. At least it wasn't when I got on today. But if it gets to a weak category 1, part of the reason Ida stayed as strong as it was when it came over New Orleans is because it went over that brown water, the swamp areas and stuff. It never went over solid land. This isn't Ida. It's barely a hurricane if it's a hurricane now, and it's much faster moving. Ida stalled out. Mm-hmm. And that was the problem. That happened. That's how it affected my house. It stalled out. We had 5 hours of over 100-mile-an-hour winds. You're not going to get that. The wind strength is going to be that high, and it's supposed to be out of here by Thursday morning. So that's a good thing. But yeah, there's a lot of distractions coming up this week. That'll be a challenge. But at the same time, sometimes players like that because it makes it easier for them to compartmentalize and focus. We're going to get my family and stuff out of here. We're going to maybe they go to Dallas early. If the storm gets out of here by Thursday, they just give Wednesday the day off and they make Thursday the practice day and they do another practice on Friday. Fly out on Saturday. It's just a normal schedule for them. So all those things have me worried, but at the same time, I think the team is in a good position. The confidence level is high after a beating like that they're ready to make that statement because they know the Eagles are coming up next.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are the tough games. They want to make a statement now. So I'll feel better probably. I'll talk myself into it by Saturday. But I feel like right now it's going to be one of those, we played well, but we lost. And by Saturday, I'm probably going to be like, no, we played well and we're going to win. So it should be good. It should be good. I'm sorry. I'm trying to catch up on all these things. Yeah, Lafourche, Terrebonne Basins.
Be safe, Chad. Be safe, all of you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bob, what you got coming up in the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night?
Well, it depends on the storm. Brendan and I are going to go on the air, barring our own unforeseen natural disasters. Brendan in Charlotte, and I'm in Pittsburgh for the time being, so I think we're relatively safe. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But we are supposed to have Delvin Bro on the show with us. Well, Delvin is down there near you guys, so we've already had the discussions with each other. That hey, it depends on my Wi-Fi, depends if the storm shifts or stalls. So the plan is to have Delvin on with us. Either way, whether it's Delvin, myself, and Brendan, or just Brendan and myself, we're going to preview the Dallas game a little bit more. Talk about, because I watched Dallas Cleveland pretty closely. Not because I wanted to, but really because they were the Saints' next opponent. So we're going to talk about what to expect, from Dallas, how we think that the Saints are going to attack Dallas, how we think Dallas is going to attack the Saints. Hopefully, and I doubt it, because, like you said, with the storm that's kind of shifted the Saints' typical practice schedule. But I'm hoping we have some early injury indications. We shall see. But we're going to, whether or not we do, we're still going to have a lot to talk about for sure.
Turbo to Ram, we're on every Tuesday night at this time, 8:15-ish, barring anything unusual. Bob is on usually Wednesday nights for the Bayou Blitz, and that is at 8 o'clock Central and 9 o'clock Central.
Yeah, 8 Central, 8 Central, 9 Eastern. Turbo, if you follow Alan or myself on either Facebook or Twitter, we always post the links to our shows to go live, or you can catch them on YouTube after the fact too, both Under the Dome and Bayou Blitz.
And there's both our Twitter handles, mine and Bob's over there next door.
Yes.
Yeah, that one over there. And, I'm on social media, on Facebook under my name too, Allen Ulrich. If you're in any of the Saints groups, chances are I'm in there too. Every Sunday or Monday after the game, I put in my good, bad, and ugly. So you see all that stuff. So Calvin asked this question real quick. It's the last thing I ask you before we go off. How do you think the media would treat this team? They end up with a 3-0 record. Now that means you've beaten Carolina, Dallas, and Philadelphia, 2 NFC East teams. How do you think they react to that?
Calvin, I got to be honest with you. I'm not sure the media would treat the Saints themselves any differently. We would just hear a lot of what's wrong with the Cowboys, what's wrong with the Eagles. They're not who we thought they were. The Saints will, the Saints will be exposed against a much improved Falcons team in Week 4. And their real test will be at the Chiefs in Week 5. So it'll just be the typical excuses and finger pointing on what's wrong with Dallas, what's wrong with Philadelphia, rather than good job Saints. Are the Saints a legitimate playoff team now?
Yeah, the only time that question gets asked, because I think they play Atlanta after those 2 games.
Yes.
They might ask that question if they're 4-0 going against the Kansas City Chiefs. Then they'll start talking about, is this a Super Bowl showdown? Is this a playoff, team? We're going to learn a lot about the Saints in this game. It's funny that you asked that, and this is the very last comment I'm going to make, but it's funny you asked that because I just had the 74 championship chase popped up. And it started out with the New England Patriots. Well, the Patriots, of course, beat all these good teams beginning of the season, and they were saying the same thing: "Are the Patriots a real team? Are the Patriots a good team?" They have their favorites. They're going to be locked into their favorites, and they're going to stay their favorites until you beat them and they can't play anymore. So that's just the way it works. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Thank you, Bob, for staying up. We missed the presidential debate. I hope you can catch all the who won, who lost, all that stuff. But the important thing,
Hell with all that. Vote Rose.
yeah, there you go. The important thing on who won and who lost is always going to be on Sunday. We'll talk about the Dallas game next Tuesday night. In the meantime, thank you guys for sticking with us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.